Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're completely breaking down the mechanics of habit formation using James Clear's highly structured framework from his revolutionary work, Atomic Habits. We're going to see exactly how massive, life-altering success is really just the compound interest of your daily micro-behaviors. If you've ever felt stuck trying to build a good habit or, break a really stubborn bad one, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it.
Okay, here's our game plan for this scientific playbook. We'll kick things off with the surprising math of marginal gains, talk about rewiring your identity, and then blast through the 4 definitive laws of behavior change all the way to the ultimate path of true mastery.
All right, Section 1, the math of tiny habits and the aggregation of marginal gains.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to talk about the 2003 British cycling team. At the time, they were at absolute rock bottom. They had won a single Olympic gold in nearly a century. The performance was so bad that top bike manufacturers literally refused to sell gear to them because they were worried it would ruin their brand. But then they brought in a new coach, Dave Brailsford, and he changed everything. He didn't make massive overhauls. Instead, he tweaked the tiniest details, like redesigning bike seats for comfort or rubbing alcohol on the tires for slightly better grip. His entire strategy was built around searching for a tiny margin of improvement in absolutely everything you do. Which prompts a pretty fascinating question for our own daily routines. What if you improved just 1% every single day? Well, the math that answers that question is honestly staggering. If you manage to get just 1% better every single day for 1 year, the compounding effect means you end up 37 times better by the end of it. 37 times! Habits are essentially the compound interest of self-improvement. You won't see the impact in a day, but give it a few months of practice and the results are massive.
But if the math is so simple, why is breaking a bad habit so incredibly hard? That brings us to Section 2, rewiring your habit identity by changing your beliefs.
Picture this. 2 people are trying to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Now that is outcome-based. They still believe they're a smoker who's just trying to be something else. But the second person, they simply say, "No thanks, I don't smoke." It's a tiny little shift in language, but a massive shift in psychology. It literally rewires your beliefs about who you are. The core issue is that we often try to change the wrong things, focusing entirely on the results we want, rather than the person we want to become.
This whole identity shift plays directly into the psychological habit loop. Way back in 1898, a psychologist named Edward Thorndike put cats into puzzle boxes to see how they learned to escape. He discovered that behaviors producing satisfying results get repeated. This eventually evolved into the 4 exact steps that govern every single action we take. First, a cue triggers the brain. Second, a craving provides the motivation. Third, the response is the actual habit. And fourth, the reward satisfies that initial craving. So, how do we engineer this loop to our advantage? That begins with Section 3, Law 1, make it obvious and the sheer power of your environment.
Our brains are basically prediction machines, constantly scanning our surroundings for cues. If we want to build a good habit, we have to make those cues glaringly obvious. A killer way to do this is through implementation intentions. A 2001 British study divided people into 3 groups to build exercise habits. The group that just tracked their workouts, only a 35% success rate. The group that got pumped up with high-level motivation, still only 38%. But the third group, the ones who had to write down the exact time and place they would exercise using an implementation intention, a staggering 91% success rate. Being ultra-specific provides incredibly practical cues for your brain.
We constantly think we lack motivation, but the truth is, motivation is vastly overrated compared to your environment. Take this example from Massachusetts General Hospital. A physician there wanted to improve staff eating habits, but without saying a single word to them about it. All they did was change the cafeteria layout, putting bottled water in way more obvious places than the soda. Without a single motivational speech, soda sales dropped over 11%, and water sales jumped almost 26%. You just have to change the choice architecture. Environment is so powerful that we can literally observe it breaking intense addictions. During the Vietnam War, a shocking 15% of U.S. soldiers became addicted to heroin because they were surrounded by cues, right? High stress, easy access, peer usage. But here is the amazing part. When those soldiers returned home to a completely cue-free environment, the vast majority immediately dropped the addiction. It completely proves that highly disciplined people don't necessarily have superhuman willpower, they just design their environments to avoid temptation altogether. Moving right along to Section 4, make it attractive and easy. Let's look at how to reduce friction, because human nature naturally follows the law of least effort.
The second law is make it attractive. You can do this through a strategy called temptation bundling. There was this engineering student who literally wired his stationary bike to his laptop so Netflix would only play if he pedaled fast enough. Genius, right? But you can also just reframe your mindset by changing one single word. Instead of waking up and groaning, I have to exercise, reframe it as, I get to exercise and build my health. It instantly highlights the benefit rather than the burden. And to make it easy, the third law, we really have to conquer human laziness. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Seriously, don't commit to reading a whole chapter. Commit to reading one single page. Don't commit to an intense 30-minute yoga session. Just take out your yoga mat. The point here isn't the volume of the work. It's about mastering the art of just showing up and crossing the starting line to reduce all that initial friction.
Conversely, to break a bad habit, you want to make it as hard as possible. You need to maximize friction. The great French author Victor Hugo was massively procrastinating on a book deadline. So, to force himself to stay inside and write, he gave all his clothes to his assistant and had them locked away. He literally had nothing to wear outside, making the bad habit of leaving the house impossible. And guess what? He finished The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 weeks early.
To ensure these habits stick permanently, we move to Section 5, Law 4. Make it satisfying. This is the cardinal rule that closes the habit loop and guarantees you'll do it again tomorrow.
The cardinal rule of behavior change is that we are biologically wired to seek immediate gratification. Fun fact for you, chewing gum used to just be this bland resin in the 1800s. It wasn't until 1891, when they added tasty flavors, that it became a global phenomenon. Why? Because the immediate burst of flavor made it instantly satisfying. To make a good habit stick, you have to find a way to give yourself a small, immediate reward the exact moment you finish it. One of the most satisfying things to the human brain is visual progress. Think of a habit tracker. This is actually a hack utilized by none other than Benjamin Franklin in his 20s. He carried a little booklet and tracked 13 personal virtues every single day. Seeing that visual progress and getting to physically cross an item off of a list at the end of the day is intensely rewarding and keeps your motivation incredibly high. But what about stopping bad habits? Well, just as we repeat rewarded behaviors, we avoid punished ones. We absolutely hate immediate pain. That's why getting an accountability partner is such a game changer. If you procrastinate in secret, it doesn't really hurt. But if you know a friend or a boss is watching, that procrastination is instantly punished with social friction. We care deeply about what others think of us, so an accountability partner forces you to stay completely on track.
Finally, Section 6, the path to true mastery. Let's explore how we transition from a daily habit to long-term success by overcoming boredom.
What's absolutely fascinating is that once a habit becomes a routine, it actually loses its thrill. The initial excitement totally fades. The greatest threat to success isn't failure, it's boredom. The true divide between amateurs and professionals is simply the willingness to push through the monotony when it stops being fun. Professionals show up anyway. Mastery is never static. Once you automate a skill, you actually risk slipping into tiny, unnoticed mistakes. To go from good to great, you have to maintain intense self-awareness. You have to engage in deliberate practice, meaning you actively look for the aspects that challenge you the most, and you constantly reflect on feedback to keep adapting. You never stop looking for that next 1% improvement. So what does this all mean for us? This explainer proves that monumental, life-changing results aren't about massive overnight overhauls. They're simply the compound interest of your smallest daily habits. By making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, you can engineer your own success. So I leave you with this final, crucial question to consider for your very next action. Every action is a vote for the person you wish to become. Who are you voting for today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building those atomic habits.